Being in the right place at the right time is how a lot of people had good fortune come to them, especially when they weren't looking for it. We'll show you how one of the biggest and best mining boomtowns got started that way, right now on Ghost Towns and More. In the late 1800s, mining prospectors were combing the mountains and valleys of the West, hoping to find their fortune. But there were also cowboys in the land taking care of their herds. One lucky cowboy was herding cattle in the grasslands by the Tintic Mountain Range in central Utah when he spotted some silver ore on the ground. As you can imagine, this find set off a stampede of eager prospectors to the area, and a number of mining boomtowns started up. This region became known as the Tintic Mining District, named after the Ute Indian chief Tintic, who used to live in the area.
Well, in 1869, they hit ore over in Ruby Gulch, which is 2 canyons over. Within a couple of years, they got to here. So it was 1871, 1872, by the time they had moved this far, and the miners had found silver and lead, but there was a fair amount of gold in the area too.
In about 1871, another nearby discovery would lead to something even bigger. An early settler was up on a hill at the north end of the mining district gathering firewood when he discovered silver on some sagebrush roots. According to lore, the man cried out, "Eureka! I found it!" And a new mining claim was started. A new settlement also started, and it took on the name of Eureka. By 1871, permanent buildings were going up in the new town. An immigrant from Holland named John Beck observed the mining claims up on the hillsides above the settlement. The idea came to him that ore veins up on the hills likely had to exist in the gulch below town, and so he decided to stake a claim. No one believed John would find any silver in his chosen location in the bottom of the gulch, so everyone called him the Crazy Dutchman. John began digging, and at the 200-foot level, struck one of the richest ore veins in the entire area. He named his new find the Bullion Beck Mine, and it soon made him a millionaire. In no time, the town of Eureka took off, with businesses opening by the dozens. But the unique thing about Eureka was that unlike other wild and lawless boomtowns in the West, it was more of a quiet and orderly town, which said a lot about its citizens and strong police force. Nevertheless, Eureka still had its share of saloons and the problems that came with them. Despite that, the mines in Eureka were so profitable that they had a significant impact on many economies elsewhere.
And so they would ship ore from here with mule trains or ox carts or whatever, and they would ship it up to Corinne, where the railroad was, load it on railroad cars there, ship it to San Francisco. In San Francisco, they'd load it on barges, and they would go around the southern tip of South America. And you got to remember, everybody had to make money. The miner had to make money, the ox cart has to make money, the railroad had to make money, around the South America had to make money, and the smelter had to make money in Birmingham. So you can imagine how much money was involved in the whole operation in order to get that to happen.
Eureka had gained so much notoriety that steel millionaire Andrew Carnegie contributed funds for the new town library. JCPenney built his second store here, and the town had 2 newspapers. The mining going on underground was phenomenal, with shafts and tunnels spanning several miles. Above ground, the town continued to grow with stores, shops, churches, and schools.
J.C. Penney was one of the first ones at the bottom of the Elks Lodge. The Elks Lodge, that's the oldest Elks Lodge west of the Mississippi. Elks Lodge building. There are older lodges, but there's no older buildings. That was built in 1902. And that was the second Elks Lodge in the state of Utah. They would build the Elks Lodge upstairs and then have retail space downstairs where they could rent out the retail space, so it would make them some money to keep on going.
Two competing railroads came from opposite directions up the steep canyons and ending in town. Eureka was a busy place, and along with all the other residents in nearby towns in the district, the population swelled to over 8,000. Eureka was not without its economic troubles. Like other silver mining boom towns throughout the country, the Panic of 1893 forced many mines to close, and with the drop in the price of silver, the economy in Eureka stumbled. Miner strikes added to the problems, and hundreds lost their jobs. If that wasn't enough, a fire broke out on July 10, 1893 in one of the saloons, and spread to several other buildings along Main Street. 3 years later, almost to the day, heavy rain set off heavy flooding in town, resulting in the deaths of 2 people. On August 28, 1929, the Tintic Mining District celebrated its Silver Jubilee, the 60th anniversary of the discovery of the first claim. The festivities went on for weeks, with over 5,000 people in attendance. There were baseball games, rodeos, barbecues, and races, as well as a parade. Stunt pilots with airplanes provided thrilling entertainment. The festive atmosphere was marred when a terrible accident took place. One of the pilots giving rides to passengers lost control of his plane and crashed into the Eureka City Hall, striking the bell tower and causing a large hole in the side of an adjacent building. The pilot was killed, but the passenger, a 16-year-old girl, escaped with moderate injuries. Just 2 months later, the Great Depression began, and it set off economic hardships for everyone. Although the mining in Eureka was a powerful source of revenue for the town, the Depression hit especially hard. The population began to drop as people moved away, looking for opportunities elsewhere. As the months dragged on, many homes and buildings were either torn down or moved. During World War II, the military was heavily dependent on specific mining for ores needed for machinery and weaponry, which brought some economic life back to Eureka.
But then it peaked again during World War II because the metals that they were getting were absolutely essential for the war. My dad, for example, went down to join the Army the day after Pearl Harbor. He went through his whole interview and they said, okay, everything's ready to go. We'll get back in touch with you in the next couple of days and ship out. And he said, by the way, where are you working now? And he says, I'm working for Jesse Knight up in Eureka. And they tore up his application and said, you go back to work. We can teach any kid how to shoot a gun, but if he doesn't have any bullets, he can't shoot anything, and without the lead, we can't make any bullets.
After the war, the boom years for Eureka were over.
The day after they got out of the war, they started junking the airplanes, the tanks, everything that had damage on them. They started turning them into the junkyards, and so the price of metals went way down. So within just a few weeks after World War II, price of copper, price of lead, even gold and silver were bottoming out, the prices.
The railroad tracks in town are gone, and many of the buildings along Main Street are empty. Several prominent headframes and mine tailings dot the hillsides. Some historical buildings are being preserved, and a modest population today loves to call it home.
We have 600 residents approximately here now. One of the things that I enjoyed as a young man, and you just got to clear your head. You just walk up in the hills and sit on a rock, throw rocks at jackrabbits, whatever. You enjoy, you let your mind wander, and there aren't very many places where you can do that anymore, where you can just be all alone. I can't see anybody, I don't know where anybody is, and I don't care. Totally relax, take a deep breath, get your thoughts about you, and go back to work.
Eureka is part of a significant aspect of U.S. history and what fueled the development and growth of the entire country.
Odds are, if you go back in your genealogy, you will find somebody that was involved in mining to help support their family, at least for a period of time. It may not have been their whole life, but it was something in order to get established, in order to make it through hard times, something they had to deal with mining. So everybody owes some of their heritage to the opportunity of mining and making money through the mine.
The large headframe from the Bullionbeck mine is a prominent historical landmark at the west end of town as a towering symbol of the success of the past. The cemetery is further west of town with names and epitaphs from so many people who once were a part of this amazing historical town. Be sure to stop in and visit some of the sites for visitors and visit the local shops that provide supplies and great food for your travels through western Utah.